You know you have been traveling a lot when you can basically recite the airline's safety briefing from memory. I have been on planes more in the last month than probably I have been on in the last 3 years. I'm so ready to finally be home and be able to just settle down for a long winter's nap. I will see you on the other side. Welcome to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I'm a knitter and a crocheter, and I am a cyclist and fundraiser for AIDS Lifecycle, a 7-day, 545-mile bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles each year, raising money for the life-saving work of the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. How are you? Thank you so much for taking some time out of your week to spend it with me, to get caught up on what I've been doing besides just sitting on airplanes, see what I'm working on, and hear a little bit about my trip to Rhinebeck this time. That was basically the big event for the past couple of weeks. You can find me on Instagram at Gary Knits, Gary Rides. And you can also find me on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides. I recorded my last episode, I guess right before I headed out to go to Rhinebeck for the big Rhinebeck weekend, New York Sheep and Wool, and all of the attendant activities around that. I'm going to go through kind of a synopsis of what I did that weekend, what I picked up along the way. There's not going to be too much on the knitting and crocheting side this week because I've been really focused on one particular project, just because it was kind of an easy thing to take with me on the road, and a couple things that I worked on that have left my possession. They were donations for various organizations. We'll talk all about that. In terms of other things that have gone on in the last couple of weeks, I just got back yesterday from a business trip to Miami. It had been probably 10 or 15 years since I'd been to Miami, and it is exploding down there. There's cranes everywhere, lots of new construction. Not my cup of tea in terms of weather. It was like 86 degrees in November, which is about 15 degrees warmer than I would like to ever see. But I was able to catch up with a friend, actually the guy who married me and my husband, and spend the weekend with him, and that was a lot of fun, and then had my business thing to deal with, and got back late last night. So I'm a little late in getting this recorded. I'm trying to get back on a regular schedule, but all this travel has kind of thrown things off a bit for me. In terms of other things going on, before we get into the recap on Rhinebeck weekend, we just wrapped up the fall 23 edition of the End AIDS Knitalong and Crochetalong. That is a series of Knitalongs and Crochetalongs that I run each year as fundraisers for my AIDS Lifecycle fundraising. So we just wrapped up the kickoff for this year, which was the fall edition. We had 7 patterns, I think 5 different designers and dyers, and we had a great time. I am still working on a number of my projects. That's the problem with doing 7 designs, is that there's no way that I'm going to be able to get all that done in 2 months. But a lot of people finished a lot of the projects, and I've loved seeing all of the pictures as people have posted them. For those of you playing along at home, I have drawn names for all of the remaining prizes. So with all of my Knitalongs and Crochetalongs, there are a minimum of 5 rounds of giveaways. Most of those are for whips, but I've done the drawings for the final whip prizes, the final FO prizes, as well as the grand prizes for each of the Knitalong, Crochetalong, and the sock Knitalong. So I just want to give a huge thank you not only to everyone who participated, who bought tickets, which is how I do the fundraising piece of the Knitalongs and Crochetalongs, but also to the dyers and designers who spent time coming up with designs and dyeing up yarn and participating in the event. So Samba Knits, Melissa K Designs, Cerulean Orchid, Yarn Gone Wild, Yarncraft, and Casey Knits. Those were all of the designers who put their patterns into the fall knit-along. Thank you, and crochet-along. Thank you so much. Everyone loved working on your beautiful patterns, and I hope you've enjoyed the process in terms of working with me and working with the dyers and seeing all of your patterns come to life over the last couple of months. On the yarn dyeing side, many thanks to Porter Wool Co., to Jada Woo Designs, Teal Torch Knits, UP North Yarns, and Trilogy for contributing yarn to work with these patterns. And I've gotten to know a couple of new dyers through this process, which is always half of the fun for me. So thank you all for your participation in this edition of the Knit-Along and the Crochet-Along. Stay tuned. The next Knit-Along Crochet-Along will happen right after the beginning of the year, but we're going to start announcing the dyers and designers that are a part of the winter Knit-Along and Crochet-Along here in the next few weeks. So before Thanksgiving, we will reveal the designers and dyers who are going to be a part of that project. Two really, really fun projects. I'm very excited about these, and some beautiful yarn as well. So stay tuned for that. The other thing that I just wanted to mention up front was the upcoming D-Stash for Good auction. So D-Stash for Good, here it is, the Instagram, is an occasional yarn and fiber adjacent items auction that I run also as a fundraiser for AIDS Lifecycle. So my plan is on November 8th to open up submissions for the November D-Stash for Good auction. I will keep that submission form open for probably a week or so, or until we hit 350 items. That's about the max that I can manage in an individual auction. It'll take me a couple weeks to get everything uploaded and loaded into Instagram, and then the plan is to launch that auction on Black Friday. So if you don't want to run out to the mall and beat the crowds with the crowdbusters, you can sit back in the comfort of your own home and browse through all of the amazing yarn and other things that we will have available in D-Stash for Good up for auction. And the auction will run for a couple weeks. All the details on the exact dates I will post on the Instagram account as I kind of iron out all the details. So stay tuned. If you bought a lot of stuff at Rhinebeck or Woolen Folk or Indie Untangled, and you need to make some room in your stash for all of that, start pulling it all together now and taking pictures of it, and then November 8th, I'll open up that form for you to submit. So that's basically what's been going on for the past couple of weeks. A lot of travel. I have one more trip in this coming weekend, and then I hope that's it for the rest of the year. So let's talk about Rhinebeck and all of the fun that we had up there. I stopped in New York City for a day before I went to Rhinebeck. I was able to go see the revival of Merrily We Roll Along, Stephen Sondheim musical, notorious flop when it first came out. But this production is absolutely fantastic. It's Jonathan Groff, Daniel Radcliffe, who you know from Harry Potter, and Lindsay, and I'm going to forget her name. Anyway, the woman is the third star of the show. Absolutely stunning performances, and the crowd was going wild for it the whole time. So if you are a musical theater lover, a Sondheim lover, I would highly recommend this production of Merrily Roll Along. Then I rented the car, which was very, very funny. I rented a Jetta equivalent, so mid-sized car, and they ended up giving me a bright red Dodge Charger, like muscle car. It completely was ridiculous for me to be driving that around. Also, it guzzled gas, which made it much more expensive than it needed to be. But anyway, I drove up to Rhinebeck. I stopped in Mount Kisco to pick up Every Stitch, which is a local yarn store there. They were hosting a trunk show by Moondrake Yarn, and then there were a bunch of podcasters. I was meeting some of my housemates who we were all staying together in Rhinebeck in a minute, and talk about the house in just a minute. But Met a couple of those folks up there, and then we shuffled things around in the cars because a couple of them wanted to make a couple more stops at various yarn stores on the way. Ran into Kevin and Ray from Needles at the Ready, so it was great to see them again before things got wild over the weekend and swamped, although we saw them throughout the weekend, which was a lot of fun. I did not buy anything there because I knew I had a full weekend ahead of me of shopping, so jumped in the car and ended up driving up to our house, which was in Saugerties. And I've had really good luck over the years with Airbnbs. I've never had one of these horrible experiences. Some have been better than others, but for the most part, they've been roughly as advertised. This house was not. We affectionately referred to it as the murder house. It was awful. It was dirty. It was dark. It was completely run down. The pictures had to have been over a decade old. I went back and looked at them again when I was writing the review, and I could see, what they'd taken, but the house had just been completely trashed since then. It was creepy. It was like overgrown with weeds. There were like these old like trailers littering the property and a bunch of like trash and piles of like random piles of lumber and old hot tubs out like kind of in the woods. It was spooky, and the heat only worked in about half the house. Only about half of the plugs worked. There was no light in the main living area, so the thought of us like sitting around and like knitting in the evening completely lost. We had to like pull all of the like little table lamps that we could find around the house and use extension cords to the 2 or 3 outlets that we could find that work, and bring them all to like the kitchen table, and that's where we all ended up sitting around. So that was really the low point of the weekend, was our housing situation. Luckily, my housemates took it all with grace and good humor. We made the most of it, and did the best we can. We ate well. We had planned our menu and were able to cook there at the house, but it was not a pleasant living situation. Anyhow, so we got up on Friday, the first morning. So we had tickets to do everything. It was, I think, most of our first time up at New York Sheep and Wool and Rhinebeck weekend, and we just decided we would do it all, which may have been a bit aggressive, but it all worked out pretty well in the end. So we had time tickets the first session at Indie Untangled, so that was our first stop, and then we had like a noon-ish kind of time ticket at Cakapalooza, and that was our second stop. And then we went to Woolen Folk later in the afternoon. That was not time tickets, which probably would have helped a little bit at Woolen Folk. But the weather was terrible on Friday. It just kind of rained in between drizzling and downpours. Luckily, we were pretty prepared. We had all brought boots and rain jackets and umbrellas and whatnot. So we got to Indie Untangled, got through the check-in line pretty easily. We had brought, a couple of us had brought items. They were accepting donations for Knit the Rainbow. And if you'd used yarn from anyone who'd ever vended at Indie Untangled, you got entered into a drawing. And both of us that brought items ended up winning prizes. So that was kind of cool. And then we just spent, I think we had you got like an hour and a half or so in your timed ticket for Indie Untangled. They had 2 shopping areas. They were not barns, but they were covered, so it was kind of like a big carport. So they were open on the sides, but they had roofs, so the rain was not much of an issue. It was just when you were going back and forth between the 2 things, which were separated by, I don't know, maybe 100 yards, 150 yards. So it was great. I thought it worked out really well. Obviously, sunny, cool weather would have been better than cool, wet weather. But everyone was in pretty good humor about it, and we got to see a lot of old friends and some new friends there at Indie Untangled. I'm just gonna kind of show my haul as I go, and then then I'll do knitting and crocheting, and then I'll do whatever acquisitions I've done sort of subsequent to that. So because we were in the first group at the time ticket, we got a little goodie bag. So this is the Indie Untangled goodie bag, and there were like little, you know, stitch marker things and little notepads and different things from some of the vendors that were at Indie Untangled. This is the 10-year anniversary. It was a great mix of vendors. So, like I said, we got to see some old friends and some new friends. I got to catch up a little bit with Caitlin from Porter Wool Co., who I just had mentioned. She did the yarn for the sock knit along this time and has done yarn for other knit alongs for me. So it was great to see her. I actually got her show colorway. So this is called Golden Hour. I picked it up on her sock base. So it's a merino 75-25 nylon merino. I didn't really have too much that I was looking to purchase. I mean, I did buy a fair amount of stuff. Very little of it is going to end up in my stash. Most of it is going to, I wouldn't say very little of it. I would say half and half, maybe. Half and half. Half is going to end up in my stash. Half of it is going to go into the prize pile for giveaways for the Knitalongs and the Crochetalongs. That is probably where this is going to go. It kind of reminds me, well, it's a little bit lighter, but it kind of reminds me of this Caitlin's yarn that I'm using for the for my socks for the sock knit along, which are going to be a November-December project for me. But this has a lighter base, but it's really pretty color there. So we saw Caitlin, saw Sarah from Sea Change Fiber. She actually was the donor of the prize that I won from the Knit the Rainbow drawing for bringing things in. So I actually Caitlin has my yarn. They texted me later in the afternoon saying, "Oh, you won. Are you around?" And we were long gone since before then, and so they said, "Well, do you know any of the vendors?" And I said, "We'll just give it to Caitlin." So I have a skein of Sea Change Fiber yarn from Sarah at Sea Change Fiber that I won, and that Caitlin is holding on for me at some point. But I got to catch up with Sarah a bit there. Also saw her later on in the weekend at Rhinebeck. Who else was there? Bluebird Makery. I got these really cute little stitch markers, Halloween glow-in-the-dark stitch markers that I will probably save till next year and use for a prize. I just finished up giving out prizes for the latest round of the Knit the Rainbow Accessories Drive raffle, and obviously the Knitalong and Crochetalong stuff. So I used up all my Halloween stuff, so I'll build up a little bit more and use that for next year. And then some Murky Depths, which was great to catch up there and speak with her. And then someone that was new to me that I was really interested in. As I mentioned, I didn't have too much that I was actually really, really looking for. There were a couple vendors that I knew I wanted to see and wanted to buy something from. The only other thing that I was kind of shopping-ish for, although I didn't think I was actually going to buy it, was a sweater quantity of some navy blue yarn. My husband has picked out a sweater, a cardigan that he would like at some point in the probably distant future. And so I thought I would start to get some ideas for that. And one of the places that I saw some yarn that I was very interested in was Why Not Yarns? Why Not Fibers? So Kat at Why Not Fibers does, she's up in Michigan, and she had a lot of really cool non-superwash, breed specific, some woolen spun stuff that was really, really nice that I think might be a cool yarn to use for that sweater at some point down the road. So it was great to meet her, and then I saw her again later in the weekend at New York Sheep and Wool. So we wrapped up at Indy. And then headed over to Cake. That was also timed tickets. That one was much smaller. It was like in the parking lot, I think, of what is the Dye Studio for Cake Yarn, Cake Wool. And they probably 20 vendors maybe that were there, and they were intense. Luckily for us, the rain kind of stopped while we were there. And so we were able to put the umbrellas away, and there was no downpour for the hour that we were there. So we kind of lucked out in that regard with the rain at Cake, because even though things were intense, but it wasn't covered like India Entangled, so it would have been a little messier. There, I made a beeline. I knew exactly what I wanted to I wanted to see. I wanted to try to get a bag from Black Pearl Magic. Everyone had, not everyone, a lot of people had that exact same idea. There were a couple of vendors there that everyone kind of made a beeline for when they kind of opened the gates. I made a beeline to Black Pearl Magic, and Shayla and her partner were there, and there was a crowd at the tent, but I was able to sort of like point to the thing that I was looking for, and I was able to get, and it's like this massive pink tote bag with sparkles in the plastic that I was getting for a gift for my sister. So I was able to get that, which was really one of the handful of things that I was really focused on buying. I had seen them at Yarn Centric earlier in the year at during Maryland Sheep and Wool, and by the time we got to Yarn Centric, because we had later afternoon tickets there, her booth was almost completely empty. And she's one of those vendors that you got to get there early, or there's not going to be anything. And if you've ever tried to get one of her bags on when she does a shop update, it's very, very similar. Things go very, very quickly. So I was glad to be able to get that and then get it to my sister for the folks who were staying with me from Maryland, who were able to take it back down to her. And then the other thing that I saw at a couple other things that forgot this that I got at Cake. It's always great to see Sheila at Urban Girl Yarns. These were not her show colors, but these were her pride colors, and I had some before. I always like to have them during the Pride Knitalong and Crochetalong as prizes. So this one is called Out Loud, I think. Loud and Proud. Sorry, Loud and Proud. And the other one, which I have had before, is the Martha P. Johnson colorway. So these are both of her Pride colorways. So I just grabbed a skein of each of those so that I could have them for June when we do the Pride Knitalong. And then the other thing I got there was from another thing as well. I'll show it later though. This is from a vendor called Wool and Vinyl. A lot of her yarn is music related. She has a Beatles collection that just came out, but I got these little stitch toppers that says it's a good day to have a good day. So I thought that was cute. I was mainly focused on bags and sort of notion-y type of things. I mean, I did buy a little bit of yarn to keep for myself, but most of it was notions. I mentioned the sweater quantity of blue yarn that I was looking for. The only other thing that I was really looking for a specific project for was some mohair fuzzy yarn for my Westnet's Mystery Knitalong. I'll show you what I've been working on here in a little bit, and I'll show some of the yarn there, but I was able to pick up some fuzzy yarn that I was going to use for the mohair dare sections of that yarn, and so I've kind of gotten a little bit mohair crazy with it. But that was it for India Entangled. One thing I forgot to mention Cake Palooza. One thing I forgot to mention from India Entangled that I got, this was from a vendor called Lemonwood, and it is one of these little things that you can hold your yarn while you're walking around. It has a little strap, but I don't need to show you that. But it basically is just a kind of a spindle, and you put your cake here and then strap the strap on there, and then you're able to walk around and knit. So I'm hoping at some point to be able to do some knitting and walking around here, maybe in the evening, and see how this works. But if nothing else, it's a good way just to hold on to a single skein of yarn. So this was called the company was called Lemonwood, and it has a little etched and a little blue sheep in there, so it's very cute. The last stop on Friday was Woolen Folk. I am sure that you have heard all about the experience that people had at Woolen Folk. It was in the little town of Catskill. It was last minute venue change. It seems like the organizer was not at all prepared for the setup of the vendors. The rain by the time we got there had gotten heavier, and that just made everything about the situation worse. I will say all credit to the vendors and folks working at Woolen Folk. They put on an incredibly, I don't want to say brave, but a very good face, because none of you could see that it was not well set up, and you could see that the rain was making things difficult. What you couldn't see the actual day of, and that no one was really sort of talking about in the moment, was just how bad the lead up to and the interactions with the organizers had been. So we had, as participants, despite the weather, we had a really good time at Woolen Folk. Obviously, it was crowded, and I could see that for folks with mobility issues, it was not a great situation. But in terms of seeing the vendors and things like that, we had a fine time. I was happy to see a lot of again, old friends and meet some new folks there. We were able to get around and see everyone. It just took a long time because it was so crowded, and there were certain points where we just sort of like, we're not going to fight the crowd to go do that. It wasn't until really we got home that all of the stories about how terrible things had been for the vendors and for the sponsors were, and what a complete disaster it was. So I felt really bad for a lot of my friends who were vending, who either ended up losing money or just not having anywhere near as good a show as they could have. So I came home, read all of the reports, decided that for the Knit the Rainbow accessories drive, which I'll talk about at the end in Craftivism, for all of the weekly raffle prizes there for November, I went and bought gift certificates or gift cards for all, not all, but for a handful of vendors who I know that were at Woolen Folk, just as a way to support them, because I know a lot of them had really terrible experiences, despite getting to see a lot of people and selling some things, but not nearly what they had hoped for. So in terms, I thought, unfortunately, it was a disaster in terms of the organization, but it was a really great lineup of vendors. So some of my favorite vendors were there. Got to meet some people for the first time. So in that regard, I had a nice time at Woolen Folk, and also got to see a lot of non-vendors. So a lot of people who stopped me, or people that I stopped that I knew. So it was a great time to catch up with people, despite the sort of terrible environment. When we first walked in, Yarnaceous and Fangirl Fibers and Pacific Knit Co. had set up their doodle bar, which if you haven't had a chance to experience that, hopefully they will come to a fiber festival near you. It is just a great concept. They do an amazing job of merchandising it. So the idea is Pacific Knit Co. has come out with the doodle cards, which are little color work cards. I've shown them before when I saw them at Flock. For Rhinebeck, they had a Rhinebeck deck that had, apples and sheep and little sweaters and different motifs that you then can mix and match to make cowls. Or you could work them on a hat or whatever. And then the dyers, so Maggie at Yarnaceous Fiber and Emily at Fangirl Fiber, have put together sort of a mix and match bar of minis that you can then coordinate with, with the doodle decks to make, an almost infinite number of these cowls. So it's a great setup. They also had a lot of really cute bags that they had printed up and things like that. So it was great to see them, and we kept bumping into them all weekend. I also inside was able to. Oh, I should mention at the Doodle Bar, I didn't buy any doodle stuff. I bought the doodle deck, but I did not buy any of their minis because I have many minis to do doodles with down the road. But I did pick up both of their show colors. So this is Yarnaceous Fibers. It is called, it's Raining Dinos. I think knowing that it was going to, maybe they didn't, I don't know how they knew it was going to rain, but they had bags that had, one of them was Raining Sheep, and it was called Balleluya, I think was the name of that bag and the print. And then the other one was Raining Dinosaurs, and it was called Rawrleluya. So this is the Yarnaceous one, Raining Dinos. And then this one is Fangirl Fibers show color, and it was called It's Raining Sheep. So I don't know, this thing's not focusing very well today. Anyway, so picked up those. Those are going to go in the prize pack. As they did at Flock and earlier at, this was also at Maryland, Sheep and Wool. They had these great bags that, and this one said, in my defense, I was left unsupervised and the Fiber Festival was open. Some of them say the Yarn Store or something similar to that. So with, I can't remember, $75 or something purchase, you got this amazing bag. So that was cool. Inside, I was able to get to the Beautiful Sister bag booth, and one of my plans was to buy a second Beautiful Sister bag. They were holding up, here's the Rhinebeck Doodle card buried under there. So that's the Rhinebeck Doodle card deck. So you see a little sweater, apples, little socks, sheep. But when I got there, they were holding up this plaid bag, which is right up my alley. And so I got this one to complement the one that I have in camo, which is one of my favorite bags. So you can hold it over your arm like that. You can tuck the strap down in it and tie these over like this. It's perfect little size for, socks, cowl, hat, definitely something like that. Probably should let it hang out because it's gotten a little wrinkled up in the bag, but very happy that I was able to snag another Beautiful Sister bag. It may be a little bit smaller. My camo one may be a little bit bigger, but anyway, happy to do that. And then just down from them, there was Magpie was there. I kind of popped in. I grabbed a skein of fuzzy yarn for the mohair dare part of my MCAL in a color that I thought would work, and then. Also there in that room was one of the other vendors that I was very excited to meet in person and pick up some more yarn from, and that was Michelle at Woolens and Nosh. So she had lots of her yarn out. It was a very busy booth. Working in the booth there with her was Caleb from Bearded Pearl, who was over from Switzerland. So finally got to meet him in person. He had some of his bags that he was selling out of their booth, and it sounds like the bag business is coming back, so I'm very excited about that. He had done some work when they were still living here in the States with Harris Tweed, made some beautiful bags, so I'm excited to see what he does there and get those back on the market. But I picked up a couple skeins of Woolens and Nosh. I think she does beautiful self-striping colorways. So this one is called Deep Fall. This is on her Targhee fingering base, so it's 90% Targhee, 10% nylon. Very beautiful. And then the other one is called Happy Camper. Kind of a rainbow, kind of a moodier rainbow than sort of a traditional rainbow flag rainbow. So got those. Definitely socks will be made out of one or more of these, but I also may try, this one may be the one. Although I'm not sure about that olive green and yellow around my face. I would like to do another cowl, maybe not the Knit Chat cowl again, but one of the cowl using self-striping yarn, because I had a lot of fun with that. And so also there in that room was Courtney and Amanda, who were working. Courtney is the Dyer, but Amanda was working at the Silly Goose booth. We also saw upstairs in one of the other buildings we met Christina. I met her face to face for the first time from Teal Torch Knits. And I'm looking forward to seeing her again because she is going to be vending the weekend before Thanksgiving at the inaugural SoCal Fiber Fest, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a second because I have a pattern I'm working on for that. And then at the very end of our stay there, I ran back in because I missed them in the crowd, and was able to catch up for a minute with Geraldine and Marie from Wandering Flock. And they gave me, the next day they saw me at Rhinebeck, and they were handing out they were doing a meetup there on the hill, and we just happened to be up at the same time, and they were giving out these little minis, which are adorable, and very on brand for Wandering Flock. These Geraldine does an amazing job with pastels, so that was like that super cute little kind of gift to give out to their fans. And that was about it in terms of the vendors. I'm sure I'm missing someone that we saw. There were tons of people. It was just very crowded, and we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time in any one place. If you were really trying to do some serious shopping, I think it would have been a really difficult experience, and that is probably why the vendors had such a terrible time of it, because it was just so crowded that you couldn't really hang out in one spot for very long. But we did see a lot of people other than yarn vendors. I finally got to meet face to face for the first time Adela from Lola Bean Yarn Co. She was one of the first people. I was standing in this tent because Knit the Rainbow had a table there, and they were taking in donations. So I got to meet Austin face to face for the first time at Knit the Rainbow. Obviously, I've met him over Zoom several times because we've done interviews. We did the Pearl Awards last year. And so I had, I think, 11 hats to give to him. One of my housemates had a neighbor and had brought a whole trash bag full of things to donate to Austin. And while I was trying to get things sorted out, someone just kind of peeked around the corner and was like sticking their head in face in my face, and it was Adela from Lola Bean. So I got to meet Adela and Jimmy and speak to them for a little bit. They were going to do a podcaster thing there at on the stage at Woolen Folk. I'm sure you've heard her experience with the whole situation. It was great to finally meet the two of them. Gigi was there, so I got to get a big hug from Gigi. Lewis from Brooklyn Boy Knits was there. Ran into Vincent from Vesuvius Crafts for the first time, which was really great to meet him, and saw him several times throughout the weekend. Carrie, the Wandering Yarny, and Angie, who just won the Desert Panda Fiber Arts gift card that I gave away on the last episode. So she was down from Maine, and I got to meet her face to face. So that was really cool as well. And a bunch of other people. And I apologize if I failed to mention meeting you, because it was such a blur the whole weekend. But despite the rain, at Woolen Folk got to meet a lot of people. Got to see a lot of vendors, and the whole situation was just really unfortunate and sad for both attendees who had difficulty getting around or dealing with the crowds, and for the vendors who were sold a bill of goods in terms of what they were going to be getting for their booth fees and etc. So we went back to the murder house that night. One of the fun things that we did in the house was a Yankee swap. I don't know what else other people call these sort of white elephant. No, this one wasn't white elephant, but we used to do them in our family at Christmas time when we stopped buying gifts for the extended family. And you draw names out of a hat, and there's wrapped presents, and you pick one, and then you have a chance to steal them. So we had decided as a house we were gonna do that. And so we did that the first night we were there, and I got really fantastic. I'm lucky no one stole it, and it was interesting because unlike my family when we did this at Christmas time, like people were constantly stealing everyone's gifts, but nobody stole anybody. Everyone just kind of took what they got, and so I got these two skeins of Stargazer yarn from Juniper Moon, and it is 70% llama and 30% silk. And when I tell you this is some of the softest yarn I've ever felt, and these are great Gary colors. I mean, these are right up my alley. I am thinking this is going to be a really great two-color. Maybe the contrast isn't so much, so I don't know how it would work in color work, but maybe I don't care about that in terms of like the contrast. Maybe some sort of slip stitch or mosaic or something pattern. But because it's so soft, I really think it would be great as like a cowl. Anyway, so thank you, Caitlin, who was the one who brought my gift. The other thing is one of my other housemates who is super crafty, and I guess has like a Cricut machine and all these things. She made us these little Notion pouches that say Knitting Gangsta, and then someone else in the house had brought little cedar bags and had bought one of those giant spools of barber cord, and so she broke it up into smaller pieces and gave each of us some barber cord. So that was really fun. I had a great time, despite the terrible house. I had a great time with the folks that came together, and we were kind of from all over the place. Some Maryland, obviously from California, some folks from Massachusetts. So it was a fun group of people, and like I said, weathered the less than ideal housing situation with a lot of grace and good humor. So the next morning was the big day at Rhinebeck. It was Saturday. We got up and headed over there. It was not supposed to be very good weather, and it was kind of crap all day long. I mean, just kind of not as heavy a rain as Friday, but it just kind of drizzled off and on. But we had a good time, and Rhinebeck is so big. And even though it's crowded, nothing like the crowds at Wollenfolk, and it's spread out enough that I feel like you could find a spot where things weren't super crowded if you weren't specifically trying to get some of the super hot show colorways or whatever. You could take it at a fairly leisurely pace, and we did a nice mix of like walking through the the barns and the buildings, and then spending some time when it wasn't raining out on the hill, which is where kind of everybody, socializes and meets up with people. So it was cool. I was wearing my Rhinebeck sweater, which I loved. I thought it was perfect weather for it. It was kind of cool. So I didn't get too hot in it, which I'm so glad it wasn't like 90 degrees like apparently it had been the year before. So it was perfect sweater weather. Because I had an umbrella, I was able to keep my raincoat off and kind of just have the sweater on. I got several compliments on it, which always which made me feel good, and didn't do much shopping that first day at all. I try to think if I bought a single. I mean, I didn't do much shopping at Rhinebeck. Most of the shopping was done on Friday, but I don't know if I bought anything that first day at all. I was just kind of sort of absorbing it all, taking it all in, running into people that we hadn't seen the day before. So I got to meet Irina from Fiber Chats, Jake from Ken Yarn, which was such a thrill. It's been such a dream of mine to meet him face to face after he did the yarn for me last year, the Love Bubble yarn for the fundraiser for the AIDS Lifecycle. So I was able to meet Jake and his partner, and that was really, really cool. Got to meet Lindsay from Fibro Yarn, and I told her she can't dye any more Marvel yarn because my Marvel blanket is already going to be, 3 times the size of a king size bed, so I can't take any more colors. And to that, I met Melissa K of Melissa K Designs, who designed the Star Align hat and mittens for this most recent Knitalong. So that was cool. She was wearing this adorable sheep sweater that she had made, and then we just kind of hung out on the hill for a bit and met a bunch of different people. Took a lot of pictures, and it was really fun, but a long day. And so went back to the house and kind of chilled out, did some knitting, did some show and tell of things that everyone had bought, and knew that we had Sunday at Rhinebeck to kind of do any shopping that we needed to. So went back on Sunday, went to see some places that we hadn't seen before. I should have mentioned on Saturday, one of the most fun things that happened the entire weekend. It was just random. Someone in my group wanted to go to CC's Wool. Lola Bean had their leaf voter suppression behind colorway at CC's Wool, which I think they do every year. It's a fundraiser for Fair Fight and some other voting rights organization. Apologies for not remembering exactly what it is, but they wanted to go see if they could get some of that. And so we found out where they were, wound back there, got to see CC, say hello, and then while we were there, just randomly, I think, although I think they'd been there most of the day, Adela and Jimmy were kind of hanging out and like meeting and greeting people, and then all of a sudden, Gigi was there, and Lewis from Brooklyn Boy Knits was there, and Cairo was there, and there was like a whole group of people, and so we got this like big group photo. Vincent was there, Carrie was there. It was just a really fun photo op that kind of happened where we were all just kind of there, and everyone jumped in the photo, and we had a really good time hanging out with those guys for a little bit more. But on Sunday, we just kind of wandered around some of the barns that we had not been to. Went to the hill for a little bit. Knit Stars was doing a sort of meetup, and I'd never met Shelly from Knit Stars, so went up there and was able to meet her. Ran into a bunch of other folks up there. The Needles of the Ready guides were there. Michael from Piece for Piece Crafting, who we'd met at Woolen Folk, was also there. We got to hang out with them for a little bit more. Then everyone kind of ran. Valerie, who's a Visit with Nana and Papa here on YouTube, on Saturday at Rhinebeck, had found this booth. It was a tent outside where it was a farm that had yarn and dyed yarn, but it was sort of like just unlabeled and kind of just like woolly wool yarn. But they were selling it for, I feel like it was like a double skein for like $10 a skein of like, I think she had gotten like DK weight. And so she was telling everyone, all the Needles of the Ready guys and Michael from Piece for Piece about this place. And so after we had sort of chit-chatted with everyone, we went back over there and everyone was there. And on Sunday, they had marked down these like huge skeins of yarn for like $5 a piece. And so all the guys were like grabbing like sweater quantities of yarn. And you could get like a sweater quantity of yarn for like $30. And they had, it was all solid colors, and like I said, it wasn't merino, it was like a woolly wool kind of wool, but for like a rustic sweater, it was amazing, and the value was outstanding. So it was very funny to run into them all again over there. That day I did meet up with Joanne from Goddess Crochet, who came up to me and introduced herself, said she followed me on Instagram, and that she wanted to give me some of her handspun yarn. And so she gave me this absolutely beautiful, it is 3-ply, 2 plies merino, and 1 ply of like alpaca and tencel and merino. And it's 224 yards. I think it's 50 grams. So I think it's I think fingering weight. But absolutely beautiful. And she said, you could keep it for yourself, or if you wanted to use it as a giveaway. And I said, oh my gosh, I think I'll do that. So I think what we're going to do is this is going to be part of the giveaway when I hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So I'm going to hold on to this. When I hit 1,000, this is going to be part of the prize. I think we may also do like a shop my stash thing. So maybe you could get this and then find something in my stash to match it up. But it's really, really pretty. Yellows and pinks and sort of dark kind of purplies in there, and orange. It's really pretty. So thank you, Joanne, for that. The other thing I got that day was someone had... there was a booth called C-Word Crochet, and Erin Von Holt was working there, and so I was going to go by and say hello to her, meet her face to face, and she was sharing a booth with Ashley from Hanging On by a String. I always want to say Hanging On by a Thread, and she's like, oh, you got to go over there and see her stuff. She has all of these like really unusual fiber. She does like cotton and tencel, but she also does like these like really unusual things like a stainless steel and stuff. So we went over there and we started chatting, and I said, I want to see this stainless steel yarn. I know in this season of Knit Stars, which just dropped, one of the designers, is it Olga Jazzy Knits? I can't remember. It's Olga something, but she's designed something that has you do it with you hold a piece of stainless steel thread along with a regular yarn, and it gives it like some structure, and it's this folded kind of 3D design. So I thought that's what she might have. It's not, but she had this is the stainless steel yarn, and it's a I think it's a merino wool, and then alongside of it is woven is this silver, which is this. I'm sorry, I can't. Is this is the stainless steel bit? So it doesn't have that like what I thought sort of bendability. I thought it would be like a real like a filament of stainless steel, but I thought it was a very cool idea, and so I thought it would be fun to play around with that. Some of the other things, I'm gonna forget some of the other fibers she had, but the other one that I got, which I was just like, I've got to get this because it's so unusual, is milk fiber. It's incredibly drapey, kind of to me like feels like sort of a silk or a tencel. There is some magic. It's 100% milk, is what it says. There's some magic where you apply chemicals to milk, some sort of protein gets extruded, and somehow it is then be able to be spun into this fiber. So it's, let's see if you can see how drapey it is. It's it doesn't have much structure to it all in terms of unlike a wool or even a cotton. It's just very, very, very drapey. So I got 2 skeins of it. I don't know if they're 100 grams or what. Doesn't really say. Sport weight 174 yards, so that sounds like more like 50 grams. So I bought 2 skeins of it. I thought it would be pink is kind of my sister's color, and I thought it might be kind of a fun maybe cowl or something for her. And actually, it may be fun to do a little color because I think it works pretty well with that stainless steel yarn. So maybe I'll do something with those together. So that is Hanging On by a String. Go check out her website, because now I can't remember all the different fibers she was working at, but it was just really cool, non-wool, not just cotton. So there's a lot of really interesting things that she was working on. And then the only other thing that I got for the weekend was at Thread and Maple. I knew they were going to be there, as I had said before, when they had their big annual seconds sale, where you can get like 40% off on seconds. I got one of their notebooks, and I sort of got some of the pages for it, but I wanted to kind of see how I liked it, see how things fit in it before I got all of them. So I just got one more. This is it's for the Chaogu complete set. It has these little needle holders. Sorry for the glare, but the needle holders that are velcroed on the back and pop onto this, but it holds like a complete set of Chaogu needles. So that was Sunday. We spent most of the afternoon there, but then folks were having to get ready to fly out on Monday, and it's not super close to the city. So I was flying out. Other people were driving back to Maryland and then flying on from there. But it's like 2.5 hours back to JFK. I think if I were to do it again, I might look into flying to Albany, even though it would be, a connection. You're not going to fly from LA direct to Albany, but that I think is more like an hour and a half to Rhinebeck. So I don't know when this trip will happen again for me. It's not going to be something I can do annually. It was an amazing weekend. It's truly one of the most beautiful parts of the country, I think. And at this time of year, the leaves were just beautiful. And when the sun came out on Sunday, because Sunday was a gorgeous day, it was just really a magical experience. So highly recommended if you've not been able to do it. Don't get the house that we rented, but everyone else we spoke to said, "Oh, our house is amazing. It has this like big porch. We all sit outside and knit." That was not our experience, but it's a beautiful part of the country, and it's a fun weekend. Hopefully, something will step in to fill the void of Woolen Folk. I can't imagine that that's going to happen again with the same organizers. But it did show that there is definitely demand for another event, because getting into Woolen Folk, or not Woolen Folk, getting into New York Sheep and Wool is apparently very difficult. There's only a limited number of spots. And there were good crowds at both Cake and Indie. So I think there is room for another Friday event, just hopefully one that is well organized and safe for everyone to vent at. So, like I said, I don't know when I'm going to be able to go again. It's not going to be for several more years, I think, unless something, excuse me, completely changes for me. I would also say I was just looking down at my notes. The other person that I met that I was just super thrilled to meet on Sunday, or I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday or both, was Angel from Scrappy Angel, whose bags I just gave away a couple of them earlier this week for the Knit the Rainbow accessories drive, as well as for a 6,000 follower giveaway that I'm doing over on Instagram. So if you hadn't seen that, go check that out. So that was it for Rhinebeck weekend and sort of things that I picked up for that. In terms of actual knitting and crocheting, as I mentioned, I don't have a whole lot to talk about. I knit 3 hats during my trip to and from Rhinebeck. One of them got donated to Knit the Rainbow that weekend. The other 2 I knit on the way back, and those got sent off to Sunny at Noodly Knits, who does her annual hat drive for her uncle in South Korea, who has a cancer hospital. So I don't have either of those to show, but I do have 2 FOs. I can pop pictures of them up here. So one's a citrus hat, and the other one, I can't remember. It's someone's like a Priscilla hat or something like that. I'll put the name up here. Chunky weight, kind of cable-y kind of thing. So those are the only 2 FOs I had. In terms of whips, I have been mainly working on my West Knits Mystery Knit-Along. This is going to be not finished. Well, the thing's over, so it's obviously not finished. I am only halfway through clue number 2. I had to start and restart and restart and restart. The second color of clue number 1, I think I probably knit that section like 4 or 5 times until I finally got it right. It just, I don't know. I found the starting of this very fiddly, even though it was supposed to be the simpler version. But here's where I am. Let me see if I can get the back here. There we go. There is all of the first half of clue 2, so that's section 9 as written in the pattern. There's my clue 1. I just did the revised clue 1 as written. Not really as written. What I've decided, I'm going to go mohair crazy with this one. So I think in his instructions he mentioned maybe in clue 2 to use a mohair dare, but what I did was in the second repeat in clue 1, all of those have a corresponding mohair. As you can see, the gray green in the very, very center becomes a little more green with the mohair that I picked out. The other ones match pretty well, although this third green, it looks more like a Kelly green here because of the mohair than how it looks in that first round. But I like the way it's turning out. I did pick up, as I mentioned, one of the things I was looking for were the fuzzy yarns, and so 2 of them, I didn't bring the I didn't bring the magpie one in here, but these 2 were kind of the one goes with the gray green, and then one goes with the kind of lime green. These are color 1 and color 2 mohairs. This one It's from Alchemy Fiber. It's called Cabbages and Kings. And it's very similar to the other one, but it does, it's hard to see it here, but it does have some gray and sort of brown tones in it. And I thought that would work pretty well with the gray, because I wanted to keep the green vibe. And so I didn't want to do like a gray mohair with it. So I wanted something that was going to pull it more on to play off the green that's in that gray green. And then this one, not mohair, this is from Yarnaceous, and it is an absolutely delicious base. It is, I believe it's cashmere merino. It's a little fluffier than the silk mohair, maybe a little bit heavier, but it is dreamy. I'll pop the name of it up here because I can't remember the name of the base, but when I grabbed it, Maggie was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're getting that because it's such a fantastic base." So these have been fun to work with. I'm just going to continue to play around with them in the pattern. I did on this clue number 2 in the second repeat as well. In the second repeats of the eyelets, so it happened to be in the gray green, and then in the Kelly green. I did the mohair dare again, so I will do that again on this second half of Clue 2, which is basically a mirror image. So I'll have those mohairs in there, and then we'll see what happens in Clue 3. I've seen the pictures. One of my housemates was already working on Clue 3 when we were there, and maybe I'll throw in some mohair along there. I just haven't looked ahead to see what the repeats look like and if there's a symmetrical way to do it. It's very, very green, and it might be fun if I can figure out where to do a pop of something else in there. Maybe a hot pink could be fun. Maybe just a cream or an off-white or something. I don't know. It's not really a color pop if it's an off-white, but might be fun to do a color pop. If you have any suggestions of what might look good with a bunch of greens, let me know. And that's basically all that I've been working on. I still have my cerulean orchid hat and my Save to Bun cowl, and that's I'm going to kind of put that shawl on hold for a week or so, and try to get through both of those projects, which were for the Knitalong Crochetalong this time, and then my Samba Knits Embracing Our Nature socks, which are going to be more of a November-December project, as I said at the beginning, because it's the cable and trying to do them 2 at a time. It's something that I can't really take with me on a plane. I'd really need to concentrate and focus on it. So it's going to be sitting around the house knitting. Now that the traveling has ended, hopefully I will have some more time just to kind of sit and knit. Although plane rides are great for basic hat knitting and things like that. So maybe I can churn out a couple more Knit the Rainbow things before the end of the Knit the Rainbow accessories drive. In terms of other acquisitions, and then we'll get into Craftivism, I did have a couple things that were waiting for me when I got back home. All of it or both of them from Lola Bean. So I got my, I can't even remember what month this was, but this is the black label that was the Pearl Jam inspired colorway. It's called Pearl Jam Garden on Sport Weight. It is merino cashmere nylon, so it is very soft and squishy. Beautiful colors. I think when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this would look great with like her leave voter suppression behind, because it has these oranges in it. It also, I think it probably would be okay. It has a lot more purple in it than I first realized. It actually would look great, I think, with this, which is her Sinister colorway, and this is a DK weight, and it's on a merino yak silk base, but it's this really great deep dark red with some black speckles, more a tonal burgundy red, but that yak silk base, which is what my MCAL is, not Lola Bean, that's Undercover Otter, but it's all the yak silk merino, and it's the drape on it is just absolutely fantastic, and the sort of darkness of the yak base gives it a real rich a real rich look. So those are the only other two acquisitions that I have that came in while I was away. I have a couple things coming in. I think some of the vendors that were affected by Woolen Folk, posted a bunch of stuff that they had for sale that they weren't expecting to have for sale up on their website. So I got a little bit of that just to be to help support them, and some of that will go into the prize pack. Some of it will go into the stash. In terms of Craftivism, I have mentioned earlier that we are still a month and a half to the end of the Knit the Rainbow accessories drive. So that has been running since September. It will run until December 15th. Each Monday, I am going live on Instagram and doing a raffle. So if you post your whips or FO photos up on Instagram using the hashtag Gary Knits the Rainbow 23, I also just learned you can hashtag stuff on Ravelry. So if you want to tag that on Ravelry as Gary Knits the Rainbow 23 as well, I'm going to check those as well and throw those into the raffle bin. So every Monday I do a raffle for a winner for the accessories drive. As I mentioned, all the November prizes, I think, and actually all of the remaining prizes, so through the second week of December, for the weekly drawings are going to be gift cards from vendors affected by Woolen Folk. So great opportunity to meet some new dyers that way, and check out their yarn if you're a winner. So go ahead and post your pictures up there using that hashtag. There are also prizes at the very end of the accessories drive. Those are going to be based on who donated and made the most items. So there are two ways to win there. If you go to a link down below, and I'll put up a QR code here on how to get there directly, I have a tally sheet, and you just tally everything that you've donated. There's a point system based on what things are most valuable to Knit the Rainbow. Whoever has, I think that the top three point totals are going to get prizes. I have a full advent for the number one person. I have gift card for Pretty Twisted Yarns. I can't remember what the third point total prize is, but they're pretty good prizes. And then I'm going to do 3 drawings as well. So each point you get counts as a ticket into the drawing. And so there's an Woolen and Nosh sock advent in there. I think there's a Jada Woo Designs mini set. So there's some really good prizes, and you have a couple of different ways to win. So keep track of what you're making. Take a photo of it if you can. Tally up your point totals, and then you'll have a chance mid-December to win some of those big prizes. While I'm mentioning Knit the Rainbow, I should also mention that next week on the 9th, they will be hosting their second annual Pearl Awards. It is a free event. All you have to do is go to the Knit the Rainbow website to RSVP. There are also going to be raffles and silent auctions. I think there may be also some random giveaways as well. It is a fundraiser for Knit the Rainbow. It's their big fundraiser for the year. They're trying to raise $17,500 this year to continue growing their operations. So they're operating in 3 cities right now: New York, Chicago, and they added Detroit this year. And these funds allow them to go out and to build relationships with partner organizations in those cities that can distribute the handmade items to kids living on the street, as well as just to continue to build those relationships with local yarn stores and things like that. So if you are around, it is a fun evening. There's usually some musical performances, some very inspiring speeches from the honorees, and it's just an overall a nice way to spend the evening, grab a glass of wine or your beverage of choice, and just kind of celebrate all the work that Knit the Rainbow is doing. So I did want to mention that. In addition to the Knit the Rainbow hat drive, my friend Jess at Jada Woo Designs just opened her brick and mortar store in Washington, and she is doing a hat drive as well, and that's going to run through the 16th of December. There'll be a link down below to take you to her post about this, so it'll give you the address of where you can send things. You can obviously, if you're in her area, you can drop them off in her store, but you could also mail those in as well. And those hats are going to be donated to the Loft Youth Shelter, which provides safe housing for kids that are 13 to 17 to keep them off the streets as well. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that's been going on for several years now, I think this is number 5, is the Mad Love collection. So that's from Madeline Tosh, and they've put together a package of patterns. There's also kits that you can buy, but I think the pattern book is like $25, and 100% of that goes to their Madeline Tosh Community Love Fund, which they use to provide support and educational and supplies and things like that to people in the knitting community, especially focused on BIPOC and LGBTQ designers and makers. This, and I think they're also donating a portion of this year's proceeds to dyers and vendors who were affected by the Woolen Folk debacle. So that's awesome. And so 100% of the pattern book sales, there's a new yarn from Madeline Tosh as part of their Gigi collection that Gigi helps curate with them. It's called Gigi Loves Warm Embraces, and 10% of the proceeds from the yarn sales are also going to be donated to the fund. So I'm very excited about this, not just because, it's a great cause, but because among the designers in this year's pattern book is Tanya from Yarn Gone Wild Yarn Craft, who just did the Save to Bun hat in the End AIDS Crochetalong for the fall. It was one of the most fun projects that we've ever had. She is just an amazing artist. Her headwear is art on your head, and so she's got one of her amazing hats. I mean, to call them hats does them a disservice, but she has one of her designs in this package, so I'm super excited for her. And Tony Lipsy's in there. There's like 5 different patterns in there for $25. So go check that out. And if you're able to buy the pattern book, 100% of that goes into the community fund. So that is all I have on the Craftivism side. Thank you for taking some time this week to spend it with me. Hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about my first foray into the New York Sheep and Wool weekend experience. I look forward to seeing you again here in 2 weeks. If you've enjoyed this, please share this with a friend, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to get my subscriber count up to 1,000, at which point we will have a big surprise. It really helps to continue to build this community. I appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks.